From the time when humans first wandered through the earliest valleys of civilization, a heavy, soft, and silent metal has accompanied us, lead. It seeped through the aqueducts of Rome, whitened the faces of European nobility, brightened the mirrors of the medieval era, and hid itself within every ancient technological revolution. Yet behind this seemingly harmless exterior lies a dark history that the world took thousands of years to recognize. Lead does not scream, nor does it cause raging pandemics, but it erodes the mind, breaks down the body, and even influences the rise and fall of empires. It is precisely this quiet persistence that makes it one of the most dangerous and enduring poisons humanity has ever created and unknowingly nurtured. This journey will unfold a grand tapestry, where science, archaeology, and history intersect, revealing how a seemingly ordinary metal could shape, and exhaust, vast civilizations. If you wish to sink into a story that is both profound and smooth enough to listen to as you prepare for sleep, yet still brimming with captivating secrets, then this is the journey for you. Let us explore the history of lead, the invisible toxin that has silently rewritten the course of the world. And as we close the introduction, the journey steps into the first deep layer of the story. Where the darkness of the earth holds the most primitive secrets of lead, where every tragedy and influence of this metal begins to form from silent yet weighty crystals. The first chapter of lead's history does not unfold on the surface of the earth, nor within the pages of ancient chronicles. It begins in the silence of geology, where veins of Galena were formed through millions of years of Earth's crust movements. This is where pressure, temperature, and subterranean mineral processes created perfect cubic blocks with a cold, silvery sheen. Galena, or lead sulfide, is not merely a mineral of a heavy metal, it is like a chemical diary of the planet, containing traces of tectonic activity, layering, and material transformation from eras when humans did not yet exist to witness them. In the dense darkness, Galena forms in vastly different geological environments. From scorching hydrothermal veins hidden deep within dormant volcanoes, to ancient carbonate layers where minerals separated and crystallized, or in the polymetallic pockets of Mississippi Valley typewars. Each environment leaves its own fingerprint on the structure of Galena, making it not only an inorganic material but also a vivid testament to Earth's history. Hidden within each Galena crystal are silver, zinc, copper, arsenic, and antimony. These elements are not randomly gathered. They are all governed by mineralization processes, accumulating and isolating over millions of years, creating a polymetallic treasure that prehistoric humans, though unaware of the mechanisms, could nonetheless sense and be drawn to. Imagine a Stone Age human seeing Galena for the first time. In a world where flint, animal bones, and clay were familiar materials, Galena appeared as a mysterious anomaly. Heavier than it seemed, shiny like metal but not as sharp as stone, and most notably, it could be ground into a glossy black powder. This very strangeness sparked humanity's most primal curiosity. When they ground Galena into powder to create coal for the eyes, they may have had no idea that they were opening a door to a chemical history spanning millennia. The fascination was not merely due to its appearance. Galena has a low melting point, which means it reacts to fire in a way distinct from familiar stones. When exposed to sufficient heat, it produces molten lead, smooth, easily cast, and easily shaped. For ancient humans, this was nothing short of magical. From an ordinary stone, through fire, they obtained a malleable substance, capable of being shaped at will. This was a crucial moment in the progress of civilization. When humans realized that nature was not merely something to observe or survive upon, but something that could be transformed, controlled, and harnessed. This beginning laid the foundation for lead's uses in prehistory. Archaeological evidence from Anatolia, the Levant, and the Balkans has revealed lead's initial roles, as beads, ritual objects, and items used in ceremonial practices. Humans of that era may not have understood lead's toxicity. They only recognized that this metal carried a mysterious allure, was different, and easy to work with. Lead beads found in ancient graves reflect not only the material's utility but also its symbolic meaning, potentially representing power, wealth, or sacredness. From a broader perspective, the geological nature of Galena shaped the entire story of lead throughout history. Its ability to occur in diverse geological environments allowed lead ore to be distributed across continents, making it easily accessible to humans. And it is precisely Galena's polymetallic nature that made it an ideal source for silver refining, copper smelting, or alloy production. Lead never existed alone, it was always accompanied by other metals, and thus its journey has always been intertwined with human technological advancements. Moreover, Galena's silvery sheen carries a unique visual appeal. In the darkness of caves and primitive shelters, fragments of Galena reflecting flickering firelight likely evoked a sense of mystery. For ancient humans, unusual minerals were not only resources, they were symbolic objects of nature, sometimes regarded as gifts from the earth or signs of supernatural forces. The color, weight, and structure of Galena made it an ideal medium to assign meanings beyond mere function. And here we see clearly one thing: the history of lead cannot be separated from the history of Galena. Without Galena ore, without its polymetallic properties, without its unique structure, lead might never have become the metal that opened humanity's metallurgical journey. The story of lead did not originate with Roman empires or medieval Europe, as many might assume. It began when humans first encountered the veins of the earth, touched these strange crystals, and realized that nature was offering them a doorway to go further. This is also where the value of looking back through a geological lens becomes clear. Each Galena crystal is not just a mineral, it is evidence of the connection between the earth and humanity. Through it, we understand why a toxic metal like lead could become so deeply rooted in human history. Because its geological nature made it accessible, workable, and versatile even in the earliest times. When a material is rare enough to feel special yet common enough to be found, its history cannot remain merely that of a resource. It becomes part of the process of civilization itself. Originating deep within the earth, the story of lead began in this way. From the dark, rough, and silent veins of Galena, humans inadvertently opened a path toward countless inventions, advances, and also tragedies. Passing through this chapter, we prepare to enter a new era in the history of heavy metals, the moment when humans not only discovered but began to master the processes of metallurgy. And in this stage, lead would evolve from a strange mineral into a defining force for early civilizations. And as those rough veins of Galena gradually emerged into the light of the human world, history turned to a new chapter, the moment when primal curiosity met rudimentary tools, creating the turning point that would initiate humanity's entire journey in metallurgy. From the instant humans first touched Galena, the story no longer remained confined to the sedimentary layers of the earth, it began to become the history of hands, imagination, and discovery. In prehistoric times, nature remained the dominant force dictating every act of survival. Humans lived among stones, trees, fire, and animals, their world was defined by the struggle to endure. Yet, within this harsh context, the capacity for observation and curiosity made them extraordinary beings. And Galena, with its captivating silvery gray, became one of the first minerals to ignite that curiosity. Its appearance made prehistoric humans pause, pick it up, examine it, grind it, and experiment. From that moment, an important transition in the history of materials began to take shape. In regions such as Anatolia, the Levant, and the Balkans, archaeological evidence shows that prehistoric humans did not just find Galena, they actively exploited it. This suggests they had recognized the exceptional value of this mineral. When they ground Galena into powder, they were not merely creating a pigment to adorn their eyes, they were opening a path to intentional artistic and ritual technology. Coal made from Galena became one of humanity's oldest materials for beauty and religious purposes, appearing in burial sites and ceremonial objects. This was not just practical use, it was culture, belief, and a part of prehistoric spiritual identity. Yet what is even more remarkable lies in Galena's reaction to fire. In an era when fire was the most precious weapon and tool, any material that changed under heat immediately attracted human attention. When Galena was heated to a high enough temperature, it released lead, producing a silvery, soft, and malleable metal. For humans with no concept of metallurgy, this must have seemed like magic. Fire was no longer just for warmth or cooking, it became a portal to transform matter, turning stone into metal. This event marks one of the most significant moments in the history of craftsmanship. Humans discovered that earth and stone could be unlocked, revealing entirely new materials within. Lead, with its softness and malleability, became the first metal that humans shaped into tools, jewelry, and ritual objects. Lead beads found in Neolithic archaeological sites speak not only of technology but also of the need to express identity, belief, and power in early human societies. This period also witnessed a subtle yet decisive shift. Humans began to see nature as a system that could be harnessed, not merely passively harvested. They actively collected galena, experimented with heating, grinding, and milling. They cast lead into shapes, creating small items for decoration, trade, or ritual purposes. This was when creative spirit, though still nascent, began to shape the technological landscape of humanity. It is no coincidence that the first cultures to develop lead-working technology emerged in regions rich in galena deposits. When resources met curiosity and need, progress became inevitable. This explains why lead, despite its toxicity, was widely used. In those early times, humans were unaware of its harmful effects, and because lead was easy to work with, it quickly became an ideal material. Softer than stone, easier to shape than copper, and requiring less energy to smelt than most other metals, lead became a natural choice for communities still navigating the material world. Many archaeologists believe that the discovery of lead also played a crucial role in the development of metallurgy as a whole. When humans realized that certain stones could yield metal when heated, they began experimenting with other ores. From this point, experiments with copper, tin, and later bronze alloys emerged. In this sense, lead was the unofficial starting point for the entire Bronze Age. It was humanity's first lesson that metals do not appear randomly, they must be extracted from nature through fire, time, and technique. During this era, lead also began appearing in objects reflecting increasing social complexity. Lead artifacts in burial sites indicate symbolic significance, possibly linked to power, status, or beliefs in protection after death. Some cultures used lead in ritual offerings, regarding it as a material with special energy, as if it could connect humans to the sacred world. These traces reveal that lead was not merely seen as raw material but as a spiritual element in prehistoric life. The discovery and use of lead in prehistory also reflect a subtle relationship between humans and nature. They did not just exploit naturally exposed galena, they gradually developed methods to locate ore, assess geological structures, and even engage in small-scale mining. Archaeological traces show that manual mining activity appeared very early, marking the beginning of organized labor and task allocation. Extracting galena was a step beyond mere gathering, it required knowledge, effort, and coordination. From here, an important development occurred. Humans began accumulating knowledge about materials. Working with galena, they recognized differences between types of stone, understanding that not all were valuable and only certain ones could yield metal. This distinction planted the first seeds of materials science, albeit in its infancy. This knowledge was passed down through generations, laying the foundation for the metallurgical breakthroughs that would later flourish. Notably, during this period, lead helped humans better understand the concept of physical properties, even without having the language to describe it. Lead's softness made it easy to shape but prone to damage, therefore, it was unsuitable for weapons or heavy tools. Yet this very limitation helped them understand the proper role of each material. Here lies the key: understanding lead, and its material nature, indirectly guided progress in metallurgy. When they realized lead could not serve as a tool, they continued seeking harder, more durable metals. From this, copper emerged as a response to the needs of growing prehistoric societies. Thus, the history of lead in prehistory is a history of discovery, experimentation, and learning. It demonstrates that human progress does not come from grand leaps alone, but from small interactions with nature. A mineral casually picked up, a stone heated experimentally, a flash of silvery light on the ground, all could lead to profound transformations. And as we move through this stage, the story of lead approaches a new threshold. Humans had learned to extract it, heat it, and cast it, but now they would discover deeper and broader roles for this metal as they entered the Bronze Age. There, lead would no longer be merely the material of small jewelry and mysterious rituals. It would become a factor contributing to trade, administration, and technology in the earliest civilizations. Lead had been discovered, and the next chapter of history would show how it was harnessed to transform the world. Amid the faint layers of humanity's memory, when the legends of fire, metal, and early communities still echoed like footsteps across damp stone, we closed Part 2. With the image of humans realizing for the first time that nature was not merely a shelter, but also a treasury of hidden energy. They learned to bend the power of earth, wind, and water to serve their survival. Yet this was only the beginning. For eventually, humanity would not only wish to survive, they would wish to thrive. And the driving force behind opening that era came from a small, gray, seemingly insignificant metal. An element that contributed to progress, yet sowed unforeseen tragedies into history. That element was lead. The engine of civilization, lead in the Bronze Age. If copper symbolizes innovation, the transition from primitive life to civilization, then lead was the silent engine behind the scenes, keeping the gears of invention and production running smoothly. Today, when we think of lead, we immediately associate it with toxins, disease, and glaring health warnings. But thousands of years ago, the ancients viewed lead very differently, a soft material, easy to melt, mold, and combine with other metals, especially copper. In the heat of glowing furnaces, lead played a secret yet essential role, acting as a catalyst propelling humans into an era of structured society, weapons, agricultural tools, and art. At that time, settlements gradually became the first cities, trade routes began to expand, and every improved tool opened a new way of life. Pure copper has a certain hardness, but to produce durable, sharp, and reliable objects, craftsmen needed an additive. Lead was the answer. Even a small amount of lead mixed with copper made the alloy easier to cast, smoother, and more precise in every detail. Axes became sharper, spearheads sturdier, statues and jewelry more intricate. Humans did more than farm, they built, they fought, they created. Those Bronze Age furnaces were not grandiose spaces. They were stifling, scorching, filled with smoke and invisible toxins unknown to the workers. They stood close to roaring flames, bent over bellows, watching molten metal drip into molds like a candle slowly melting away. In that moment, perhaps no one realized they were inhaling thousands of tiny lead particles, lodging in their lungs, flowing through their blood, slowly accumulating into seeds of deadly illness. But for them, it was work, life, the path to feed their families, contribute to their communities, and etch their names into the growing civilization. The paradox lies in this: the very material that propelled society forward also shortened many lives. Metallurgists often had lifespans far shorter than farmers or merchants, yet they persisted. As societies expanded, the demand for tools, weapons, domestic items, and ritual objects grew exponentially. When wars broke out, when houses needed building, when crops required new implements, people turned again to the furnaces, where lead played its secret yet indispensable role. To fully understand lead's impact in the Bronze Age, one must picture the relationship between humans and materials at that time. There were no automated technologies, no toxicity meters, no health standards. Everything relied on experience, experimentation, and the belief that if a technique worked, it was correct. When a craftsman mixed lead with copper and found the molding smoother, with fewer cracks and voids, it was considered a triumph. Gradually, lead became a kind of metallic spice, appearing in hundreds of objects, from locks, hinges, small bells, and statues, to everyday tools. The more it was used, the more applications humans discovered beyond metallurgy. They made ancient sling projectiles, weights for balancing constructions, even incorporated it into cosmetics or traditional medicines. This was the moment when the relationship between lead and humanity went too far. When a toxic substance is treated as a familiar material, touched, held, rubbed, melted, even ingested, what happens? A rapidly developing civilization was simultaneously digging deep health pitfalls that they could not perceive. History always has a dark side. Behind every great advance lies a hidden cost. For the Bronze Age, that cost was dependence on lead. Every growing city meant deeper mineral excavations. Every new building meant furnaces releasing more toxic smoke into the air. But could people back then know? They only saw better tools, greater victories, more beautiful statues, thriving trade. To them, that was progress. Yet, looking closely, one can see that progress always came with trade-offs. Excavated skeletons reveal lead concentrations tens of times above safe levels. Unhealed wounds, unexplained pains, prolonged fatigue, all recorded in ancient texts whose causes were unknown. These were the consequences of placing trust in a metal they did not truly understand. Interestingly, even without awareness of its toxicity, the ancients observed the strange effects lead produced. Some records describe metallurgists with trembling hands, or memory loss after years at the furnace. Certain civilizations even interpreted shorter lifespans as a form of honor, the gods call them homso. Wonder. But the truth, unknown to them, was scientific. Lead was silently taking their health in exchange for societal convenience and advancement. Nonetheless, it cannot be denied that the presence of lead enabled humanity to expand its creative capacity. Without lead, many casting techniques would have been difficult, products inferior, construction slower. Iconic tools might never have been created. Large bells, ritual masks, hollow statues, early mechanical parts. All bear lead's trace as a connector between idea and material. Lead did not make Bronze Age society toxic, it made them stronger, bolder, willing to dream, albeit at the cost of their health. Today, we may sigh at these contradictions. But in that era, lead was not poison, it was a driving force. It was the fuel of the Bronze Age, the catalyst for the first cities, the arms race, the flourishing of metal art, and the machinery of society functioning day by day. As we move into the next part of the story, we will see how seemingly harmless substances could shape the course of human history. Lead did not stop with the Bronze Age. It would continue alongside humanity for millennia, involved in dynasties, empires, and even contributing to the decline of some civilizations. But in this moment, at the dawn of progress, as the first copper tools appeared and the first cities called out, lead played its role, silent, steadfast, and immensely powerful. And from that quiet power, humanity would step into a new era, where material was no longer merely a tool for survival, but pride, symbol, and proof of mankind's ability to conquer the physical world. We leave the Bronze Age with a clear lesson: progress always has a price, and sometimes that price is hidden beneath the gleam of achievement. Yet from those very trade-offs, the story of civilization continues to be written. Full of light, but also containing the deep, hidden shadows that only time allows us to see. When humans began to extract and refine lead during the Bronze Age, this metal was no longer merely a curiosity for early metalworkers, it had become an essential, almost invisible yet powerful component in the driving force of emerging civilizations. Lead, with its ability to soften copper alloys, enabled people to cast intricate artifacts, balance weights for managing treasuries, and standardize units of measurement. Quietly, it became the connector linking the various cogs of society. From distant ore mines to the hands of blacksmiths, lead permeated every aspect of life, supporting the formation and expansion of states, and laying the groundwork for a vast network of multi-metal trade, where ships like the Ulubaran transported copper, tin, and lead across the seas, connecting different regions of civilization. Transitioning from the Bronze Age, when lead was still a silent helper, we reached the height of power and authority in the ancient world, the Roman Empire. Here, lead was not merely a tool of production, it became a foundation for urban infrastructure and daily life. Lead pipes, or fistulae, carrying water through sprawling cities, stood as a testament to technical ingenuity and sophisticated urban management. Yet, hidden within this sophistication lurked an invisible danger. The very water systems that symbolized civilization also carried a silent poison into the bodies of the populace. Bathing basins, rooftops, sewage systems, kitchen utensils, and decorative items, all could contain lead, making it an inseparable part of Roman life. The creativity and convenience Rome offered cannot be denied, but the irony is striking. Alongside prosperity and advanced technology, lead became an unseen killer. Concentrated grape syrups, defrutum or sapa, used to sweeten wine, also contained lead, turning lavish feasts and fine wines into latent agents of disease. Centuries later, scientists analyzing Greenland ice cores still detect traces of lead pollution from Roman times, a reminder that humans always pay a price for progress they do not fully understand. Lead also infiltrated metallurgical processes in Hispania and the Balkans, where silver mines released large amounts of lead-laden smoke into the air, spreading across the Mediterranean. Miners and smelters, elevated by their technical skill, were simultaneously exposed to long-term health risks. Lead in Roman urban infrastructure and industrial production illustrates a deeply paradoxical reality. The material that built civilization also created hidden hazards, consequences invisible to the eye but borne by the human body. The power of the Roman Empire, with its monumental works, urban networks, and complex trade, was made feasible by lead, yet that same lead seeped into every breath, every drop of water, every detail of daily life, leaving an indelible mark on health, physical well-being, and even the fate of individuals. Understanding lead's dual role, as both a material of civilization and a silent toxin, reveals that beneath the brilliance of an empire lie untold stories, hidden dangers only uncovered by history and modern science. From Roman pipes and bathing basins, we can observe a repeating pattern. Every technology or material humans utilize carries its own shadow. Lead is evidence of this, silent, unassuming, yet it imprinted itself deeply into every corner of Roman life, reshaping social structures, health patterns, and even the sustainability of imperial power. Recognizing this, we understand that history is not solely about battles or great figures, it is also about the subtle, invisible forces that shape human destiny. Lead in Roman infrastructure is not just a story of material and engineering, it is a reminder of human fragility in the face of unseen influences, of the complex interplay between civilization's growth and the costs it imposes. In retrospect, every pipe, every bath, every syrup holds a profound lesson. Progress and danger always travel together, and only by recognizing that connection can one truly understand what built an empire, while foreseeing its silent consequences. Thus, lead was not merely a metal, it was a quiet witness, an invisible agent, walking alongside the Roman civilization, infiltrating urban infrastructure, daily life, and even human fate. It bridged engineering and biology, convenience and hazard, power and illness. Through a careful examination of lead's role in Roman life, we begin to perceive a broader picture of history. A world where seemingly harmless substances can shape the destiny of empires, and where the power of civilization always carries latent, silent, yet potent threats. Lead in Roman infrastructure extends beyond water systems or decoration. It tells a story of humans, of power, of ambition, and of consequences, often unseen yet persistent, in every grain of earth, every drop of water, every breath of ancient Roman citizens. It was the subtle combination of engineering, artistry, and a silent toxin that created an unforgettable chapter in human history, a testament that every advance comes with risk, and every risk can offer invaluable lessons for generations to come. By understanding lead's dual, contradictory role in Roman life, we gain a new perspective. Lead is more than metal, more than material. It is a silent participant in history, weaving into every detail, every decision, every breath of humans, revealing a simple yet often overlooked truth: the development of civilization always carries invisible hazards, and only the perceptive can recognize, understand, and learn from them. From the water pipes, bathing basins, and sophisticated urban infrastructure of Rome, where lead silently infiltrated every detail of daily life, we begin to recognize an unavoidable reality. Lead was not only present in technology and conveniences, but it directly entered human bodies, becoming a silent factor affecting the health and fate of ancient inhabitants. From this point, the story of lead transforms from a tool supporting civilization into a quiet tragedy, where beauty, luxury, and everyday comfort coexisted with deadly hazards. In the lavish feasts of Roman nobility, concentrated grape syrups, or defrutum, used to sweeten wine, contained lead, turning each sip into a hidden element of disease. They were unaware that this sweetness brought prolonged stomach pain, muscle paralysis, infertility, cognitive decline, and even gradual death. Centuries later, in Elizabethan Europe, noblewomen used lead-based cosmetics, cerise or flake white, to maintain the pale complexion fashionable at the time. Each layer of makeup was a dose of poison, silently accumulating in the body, deforming physiology and health, unbeknownst to contemporary society. Lead also appeared in ceramic glazes, pottery, and pewter alloy objects, seeping from the dining table and kitchen into decorative details seemingly harmless. All this convenience and beauty came with long-term health risks, a tragedy hidden behind the glory of power, wealth, and civilization. This is the aesthetics of poison, where humans accept beauty, luxury, or convenience without realizing the price they pay. What is astonishing is that lead's impact occurred quietly and gradually, not causing immediate death but accumulating over time to undermine public health. Its consequences extended beyond individuals to reproductive capacity, cognitive ability, and the functioning of society. Powerful empires and resplendent upper classes were silently eroded by an invisible, soundless, tasteless agent, yet one potent enough to penetrate every corner of life and every critical aspect of social development. Modern scientists, analyzing the bones and teeth of Romans and medieval Europeans, have found abnormally high levels of lead, like warnings sent from the past. Archaeological data reveal that lead had entered every meal, every cosmetic product, every ceramic or glazed object, creating a widespread network of health hazards. Lead is not merely a metallic element, it is a silent witness, a subtle saboteur within human civilization. Moreover, this tragedy carries deep social implications. Only the wealthy had access to pale cosmetics, sweetened wine, and fine pottery, meaning that the elite and ruling classes were often the primary victims of lead. Their pursuit of beauty and luxury led them into a health trap they did not perceive. This illustrates the complex relationship between power, aesthetics, and underdeveloped medical knowledge, when understanding of toxicity was insufficient to protect humans from invisible hazards. Looking deeper, lead in Roman and medieval European life teaches a broader lesson about progress and its cost. Every convenience, every achievement of civilization, carries hidden risks, and lead is perhaps the clearest example, invisible, silent, yet powerful enough to alter health structures and even influence the fate of social classes. Prehistoric and Bronze Age societies had explored lead's potential, but only when it seeped into every detail of life, from grape syrup to cosmetics and ceramics, did we fully grasp its latent power, a force that simultaneously served and destroyed humans from within. The story of lead also reveals the relationship between material and biology. Lead does not appear in the body spontaneously but through products, food, decorations, and even the pursuit of beauty. It exemplifies how an invisible substance can shape human life, from physical health to society, from individuals to communities, and from the present to history. Lead's presence in meals, cosmetics, and household items demonstrates a form of insidious toxicity. One that does not erupt into immediate catastrophe but accumulates over time to become a silent destroyer. The tragedy of lead-related health also opens profound perspectives on culture, aesthetics, and power. When nobles sought pale skin or enjoyed sweet wine, they unwittingly became victims of their own desires and ideals. Lead, therefore, is not merely a medical issue but also a social and cultural one. It reflects how humans pursue beauty, luxury, and authority while overlooking hidden dangers. Ultimately, lead in Roman and medieval European life stands as a vivid testament to a universal principle: every advancement, every convenience, every achievement comes with a price, sometimes quiet, gradual, and only visible when science and history allow us to look back. Lead's tragedy is a reminder that in every step of civilization, an invisible agent quietly observes, subtly acts, and sometimes destroys what humans consider most secure. From sweet wine to pale cosmetics, from ceramic glazes to fine pottery, lead was not merely a metal, it was a silent witness, a poison of beauty and power, and a costly lesson on the relationship between progress and hazard, convenience and health. Examining this story, we understand that history is not written solely by wars or policies, but also by the silent elements that infiltrate human life, influencing physiology, society, and civilization in ways few recognize, yet with undeniable force. Lead demonstrates that even amid the brilliant glow of a civilization, invisible risks always exist, and only by recognizing, understanding, and learning from the past can humanity truly wield knowledge, safeguard health, and build stronger societies. The story of lead, from sweet wine to pale cosmetics, is a tragic chapter in human history, a reminder that beauty and power always come with responsibilities and hidden dangers that cannot be ignored. From the health tragedies that lead brought. From sweet grape syrups and pale cosmetics to ceramic glazes and pottery, we begin to recognize a crucial reality: ancient humans were not entirely blind to the dangers of this metal. While modern science can measure lead levels in bones, teeth, and ice cores, even in ancient and medieval times, careful observation and meticulous records revealed the first pieces of understanding about this toxin, showing that medical knowledge and technical expertise were gradually confronting the biochemical realities imposed by nature. Vitruvius, the Roman architect and engineer, warned against using lead pipes for drinking water, having noticed differences in water quality and its effects on human health. Pliny the Elder, the renowned naturalist, described the symptoms experienced by miners and metalworkers, from muscle aches and paralysis of the limbs to long-term physical disorders. Galen, the famous Greek physician, meticulously documented cases of metalworkers losing sensation or suffering from paralysis, demonstrating that medical observation had begun to approach the toxic nature of lead. These records attest that ancient humans, even without modern chemistry or knowledge of biological accumulation, could identify risks through symptoms and practical experience. However, these early understandings were insufficient to alert society as a whole, and lead continued to permeate daily life unchecked. Miners, metalworkers, and those in direct contact with lead ores were the primary victims, yet the risk to the elite, who used cosmetics and consumed lead-containing foods, remained quietly present. Ancient and medieval science functioned like a flickering lamp in the dark, illuminating only certain points, but lacking the power to prevent a growing tragedy. It is notable that these ancient medical observations were not merely descriptive, they contained elements of warning and education. Vitruvius, Pliny, and Galen did more than record phenomena, they emphasized the link between work environments, the materials used, and human health. They recognized that lead was invisible to the naked eye, yet its effects were clear and direct, a silent destroyer infiltrating the body, gradually impairing health and reproductive capacity. This was the very beginning of toxicology, identifying danger from observation before chemical theories or modern analytical methods existed. These insights also highlight the relationship between knowledge and power. Miners and metalworkers, those in direct contact with lead, often belonged to lower social classes and bore the initial consequences, while the wealthy and powerful continued using lead-containing products, unaware of the risks. This unequal distribution created a recurring pattern: health hazards were not evenly experienced, and only when science advanced sufficiently did the full consequences become visible. Another point worth emphasizing is the ancient capacity for observation, recording, and transmitting knowledge. Awareness of toxins was not only personal understanding but also documented, passed down, and sometimes widely shared across generations. This indicates that humans, even in antiquity, understood the connection between materials, environment, and health, a principle that modern science still relies on. Vitruvius, Pliny, and Galen were pioneers laying the foundation for toxicological awareness. Although they lacked tools for precise measurement, intuition, experience, and observation enabled them to ask critical questions: what causes harm, what does not, and how might risks be mitigated? The progress of ancient and medieval science lay not only in recording symptoms but in establishing foundations for toxicological theory. Thanks to these records, later generations had a basis for deeper research, from ore analysis and compound testing to determining lead levels in food, cosmetics, and drinking water. These initial steps demonstrate human capacity for understanding and creativity. Even without instruments, people sought to comprehend, explain, and warn about invisible dangers around them. Interestingly, these warnings sometimes conflicted with customs, aesthetics, or economic interests. When Vitruvius advised against lead pipes, he challenged an infrastructure system already reliant on the material. When Pliny described miners' ailments, he reflected the tension between economic gain from mining and human health. Through medical records, Galen created a silent yet weighty warning that convenience, technology, and cosmetics could conceal deadly risks. These observations were not just medical knowledge, they were lessons in ethics, responsibility, and prudence in applying materials. Thus, ancient and medieval science began to recognize lead as a silent killer. Though not strong enough to prevent the accumulation of this metal in daily life, the writings and observations of Vitruvius, Pliny, and Galen laid the groundwork for a profound awareness. A toxin does not need to be immediately visible or perceptible to be dangerous. It can exist silently, accumulate over time, and affect human health, society, and destiny. These insights also testify to the farsightedness of ancient humans. They did not merely observe phenomena but linked them to environment, occupation, and lifestyle. This was a crucial step, paving the way for modern toxicology, where understanding materials, the environment, and biological mechanisms forms the foundation for health protection and sustainable development. Ultimately, ancient and medieval toxicology is not just a story of medical knowledge but a reminder for humanity today. Silent hazards always exist, sometimes creeping into daily life, and only through observation, recording, and transmission can they be recognized and addressed. Lead, in Roman and medieval European life, stands as a vivid example, a silent agent infiltrating every detail of life, making technological and aesthetic advances simultaneously serve and harm humans, and offering profound lessons on the relationship between knowledge, health, and responsibility in any civilization. Thanks to these early insights, we can now look back at the full health tragedy caused by lead, from sweet grape syrups and pale cosmetics to ceramic glazes and everyday life, and draw valuable lessons about how civilization develops alongside silent yet potent hazards, which only the discerning can recognize and fully understand. From the earliest understandings of toxins in ancient and medieval science, when humans began to realize that lead was not merely a harmless metal but a silent factor affecting health and fertility, we can observe a crucial development in the relationship between resource extraction and societal growth. Knowledge, though incomplete, began to guide how humans interacted with their environment and materials, while simultaneously revealing a profound paradox: economic and military power, the prosperity of empires and city-states, was tied to lead extraction and processing activities that caused long-term harm. Here, the story of classical and medieval mining opens a new chapter, where lead is not just a metal but a decisive factor shaping power structures, social functioning, and even the course of history in great civilizations. In ancient Athens, the Laurion mines became the economic and military lifeblood of the city-state. Trade routes and mining systems for lead and silver not only supplied resources for coinage, weapon production, and fleet equipment, but also shaped the city's ability to wage war against the Persian Empire. Each mine and smelting furnace was a testament to the delicate interplay between technical expertise, labor organization, and military necessity, where lead infiltrated strategies and leadership decisions, silently affecting the health of workers exposed to toxic fumes and dust, while the benefits of extraction strengthened societal power. To the west, Rome expanded the exploitation of Rio Tinto, Cartagena, and Hispania mines, supplying vast quantities of silver and lead to support economic and military endeavors. Lead, with its ability to form alloys, lower melting points, and facilitate casting, became integral to production systems, from coinage, weights, and utensils to infrastructure. Yet alongside this prosperity, accumulated lead in air, water, and soil had visible health impacts on miners and metallurgists. Traces of this contamination remain in Greenland ice cores, serving as vivid evidence that human activity and environmental exposure have long been intertwined, a connection between progress and hidden hazards stretching back millennia. In medieval Europe, as mining boomed in Germany, Sweden, and England, lead and silver extraction became an economic foundation. At the same time, enormous energy demands for smelting required vast amounts of wood charcoal. This created a chain of interactions between resources, environment, and society: deforestation, air pollution, local community pressure, and health risks from lead-laden smoke and dust. Each mine was not only a source of metal but also a center of power, where mining technology became a tool to bolster political and economic authority, while silently sowing long-term risks into human life. A particularly notable aspect is how mining shaped society and power structures. In Athens, Laurion's mines supplied resources for the fleet, enabling victories against Persia. Rome, with Rio Tinto and Cartagena, transformed mines into strategic assets, enhancing military and economic capacity. In medieval Europe, mines in Germany, Sweden, and England not only satisfied domestic demand but also exported metals, connecting centers of power and commerce. In all these cases, lead was more than a metallic element. It was an invisible link in the chain of power and prosperity, infiltrating all facets of society, from military strategy to the daily lives of workers. As with previous civilizations, lead in classical and medieval mining brought benefits but also long-term hazards. Miners and metallurgists, those directly handling ore, suffered the brunt of toxic exposure. Occupational symptoms were recorded as early as antiquity, yet the extent and community-wide spread of these effects remained uncontrolled. These consequences were not merely individual but impacted productivity, labor efficiency, and societal development, demonstrating that lead had penetrated the very operational framework of civilization, a silent yet powerful force. Moreover, mining during this period offers lessons on the human-environment relationship. The enormous wood requirements for smelting led to deforestation, ecosystem changes, and increased environmental pollution. Lead and other metals, not only present in ores but also dispersed through smoke, water, and soil, became determinants of public health and social structure. This illustrates that even when humans achieved economic and political success, they still paid a price in environmental and human health, a complex interplay between progress and hidden hazards. Classical and medieval mining also provides insight into how humans applied technology, labor organization, and resource management to consolidate power. From the Laurion mines to Rio Tinto, and across medieval European mines, we see that metal extraction, especially lead, was not only an economic activity but also a strategic instrument. Lead infiltrated products, alloys, military and trade strategies, while silently impacting human health and physiology. This clearly demonstrates that technological advancement is always coupled with responsibility and risk, realities only astute civilizations could recognize. Another important aspect is the global connectivity of mining. Whether in Athens, Rome, or medieval Europe, metal extraction and trade created networks linking regions, where metals, knowledge, and health hazards moved together. Lead's impact was not local alone but spread widely, forming a kind of chemical diary that modern science and history can decode. Ultimately, classical and medieval mining illustrates an age-old principle: every advancement, power, and prosperity carries silent hazards. Lead, while a key material in economic, military, and social strategy, remained an invisible force infiltrating life, affecting health, productivity, and even the destiny of civilizations. Viewing mining through the lens of health and environment allows us not only to understand the growth of empires but also to see the costs of power, convenience, and progress. From Athens and Rome to medieval Europe, the story of lead mining reveals a profound truth: metals are not merely resources, they are factors shaping society, power, and history. Each mine, furnace, and alloy testifies to the intricate balance of technology, strategy, and silent risk. Lead is a silent witness, weaving through civilization, simultaneously serving and undermining it. Through classical and medieval mining, we can clearly see both the power and the hidden dangers humans always face when interacting with materials and the environment, a lesson of enduring value for all generations. From the classical and medieval mines, where lead infiltrated every aspect of power, economy, and human life, we now enter an entirely new chapter, the colonial era. This was a period when the global thirst for resources and power reached unprecedented levels. The demand for silver, mercury, and lead surged, not only to supply European markets but also to consolidate colonial empires, while simultaneously creating a health and social tragedy on a scale never seen before. The Potosi mine in Bolivia, famously called the mountain that eats men, along with Zacatecas and Guanajuato in Mexico, became symbols of ruthless exploitation, where hundreds of thousands of indigenous people and coerced laborers faced extreme working and living conditions, while toxic fumes, lead, and mercury pervaded the environment. Potosi, with its deep silver-bearing veins, was not only a massive supplier of silver to Europe but also a testament to global power and exploitation. Silver extraction there relied on amalgamation techniques, using mercury to separate silver from ore, producing enormous amounts of toxic waste containing both mercury and lead. Workers, primarily indigenous people, were directly exposed to these poisons, resulting in high rates of illness and death, yet their suffering was barely recorded in contemporary accounts. Each batch of processed ore, each bar of silver shipped to Europe, carried a hidden story of human sacrifice in the service of power and profit. Zacatecas and Guanajuato were similar, emerging as centers of silver, lead extraction with coerced labor systems and relatively advanced processing techniques for the era. Lead, which had been subtly present throughout millennia from prehistory, now appeared in higher concentrations than ever, permeating ore, air, soil, water, and human bodies. The health consequences were catastrophic: occupational diseases, paralysis, infertility, cognitive decline, and widespread mortality, simultaneously affecting labor productivity and societal functioning. Lead became a silent intruder, infiltrating every cell of laboring communities, while power and profit concentrated in the hands of a few colonial rulers and European elites. The amalgamation technique, although a technical advance, created a vicious cycle of toxicity. Mercury and lead released into the environment impacted human health directly and accumulated in soil and water over time. Subsequent generations continued to bear the consequences of these activities, and modern scientists now detect traces of lead pollution in lake sediments and ice cores in the northern hemisphere, evidence of the colonial era's global impact. This is not merely a story of mineral extraction but a historical tragedy, where power, profit, and technological progress came at the cost of human life and environmental degradation. A particularly notable aspect of the colonial period was the combination of technology, power, and social oppression. The coerced labor system, or META, at Potosi and Mexican mines demonstrates how humans became tools within the metal production chain. Each miner, each metallurgist, faced daily exposure to toxic environments, and health consequences became a prolonged collective suffering. Lead, once a facilitator of civilizational progress, had now become a global poison, infiltrating human bodies, environments, and the historical record itself. As in classical and medieval mines, colonial mining reflects the relationship between power, resources, and civilization. Yet the scale and intensity of destruction were unprecedented. Lead did not only harm workers locally but had ripple effects on the environment, society, and colonial economies. European development depended on these resources, but the price was lives, health, and environmental devastation in the colonies. This vividly illustrates a long-standing principle: power and prosperity always come with silent hazards, and Lead epitomized this reality in the colonial era. This period also brought awareness of the cumulative effects of heavy metals. Lead and mercury did not merely cause immediate harm, they accumulated over time in both human bodies and the environment, creating a toxic spiral difficult to detect. The consequences included declining public health, reduced labor productivity, and increased vulnerability of colonial societies. Modern scientists employ isotope analysis and sediment studies to trace pollution sources, demonstrating that these tragedies were not localized but had intercontinental repercussions. Another crucial dimension was the separation between benefits and consequences. European rulers reaped the silver, lead, and mercury, consolidating power, wealth, and assets, while indigenous populations and laborers became silent victims. This injustice reflects a global pattern: power and resources concentrated in a small elite, while health and ecological consequences spread across laboring communities. Lead during the colonial period is a clear example of how heavy metals simultaneously serve and harm humans, exerting influence across social strata, from physical bodies to political structures. In the context of Potosi, Zacatecas, and Guanajuato, lead was no longer a silent intruder in a limited sphere; it became a global factor, silently shaping history, society, and ecology. Its presence in ore, mercury, dust, water, and soil reflects a continuous chain of influence. From coerced labor and toxic environments to global power and profit. Lead vividly demonstrates a time-honored principle: technological progress and resource extraction are always accompanied by silent hazards, detectable only by the attentive and knowledgeable. Finally, the colonial period offers a profound lesson on human resource use. Power, profit, and technical advancement do not exist in isolation; they are inseparable from responsibility and risk. Lead in Potosi and Zacatecas embodied this duality, both a tool for prosperity and a silent destroyer of health, society, and environment. This story is not merely a historical tragedy; it is a reminder that all progress and power must be carefully weighed, and that silent hazards like lead always persist, infiltrating every detail of life and leaving deep, long-lasting impacts. Looking back, the colonial era and the silver, mercury, lead revolution exemplify the dual nature of heavy metals. Generating immense wealth and power for a few, while silently devastating the health and environment of entire communities. Lead, once an element facilitating ancient civilizations, had now become a global embodiment of tragedy, reminding humanity that power and profit always carry responsibility, and that silent hazards can shape the destiny of entire civilizations. From the tragic colonial-era mining, where hundreds of thousands of laborers were caught in the toxic spiral of silver, mercury, and lead, we now enter a new chapter, one in which modern science allows us to revisit history through a material lens, tracing the silent marks left by time. The ancient mines and once glorious silver towns are no longer just archaeological relics. They have become chemical libraries, where bones, teeth, ice cores, and lake sediments tell the story of lead pollution and health impacts spanning millennia. Modern science enables us to reconstruct the spread, accumulation, and effects of lead, transforming data that once seemed inert into vivid evidence of the relationship between humans, metals, and power. Human bones and teeth from Roman, medieval, and colonial periods act as biological diaries, reflecting levels of lead exposure during life. Each tooth, each long or flat bone, contains layers of accumulated lead, preserving traces of environment, diet, occupation, and exposure to heavy metals. Through isotope analysis, modern archaeologists can not only measure the degree of contamination but also trace the metal source. From Roman mines in Hispania, the Laurion mines in Athens, to colonial mines in Potosi and Zacatecas. These findings demonstrate that lead was not confined locally but spread widely, profoundly affecting human health across generations. Greenland ice cores offer further compelling evidence of lead's global reach. As snow accumulated annually, it trapped dust, metals, and chemicals from the atmosphere, transforming ice cores into perfect records of climate, environment, and chemistry. Analyses reveal spikes in lead concentrations during Roman, medieval, and colonial periods, reflecting large-scale mining, metallurgical activity, urban development, and metal trade. These data confirm that lead pollution was not merely a local or individual problem; it was a global issue, infiltrating both space and time, affecting the Northern Hemisphere millennia ago. Lake sediments across Europe and North America provide equally vivid evidence of lead's history. Yearly and seasonal sediment layers contain particles of lead and other metals, marking periods of intensive metallurgy from Roman times through the colonial era. By analyzing metal concentrations in each layer, scientists can pinpoint when and how extensively pollution occurred, revealing the connection between human activity and environmental impact. Each sediment layer is a page in a historical diary, narrating the interplay of power, resource extraction, and societal health consequences in ancient and early modern communities. Modern archaeological findings do more than quantify pollution, they highlight lead's role as a foundational factor in history. From prehistory to the colonial era, lead was not merely a technological material, it was a silent agent influencing health, labor productivity, and societal development. Evidence from bones, teeth, ice cores, and lake sediments shows that lead's effects were cumulative, undermining physical strength, cognitive abilities, and vitality across generations, producing profound consequences often unnoticed by society at the time. A particularly remarkable aspect is how modern science integrates multiple lines of evidence to reconstruct lead pollution history. Isotope analyses allow researchers to trace metal sources, compare human skeletal data with ice cores and lake sediments, and map lead dispersal globally. By combining archaeology, environmental chemistry, and history, scientists can comprehend not only the extent of contamination but also its long-term impact on society, economy, and public health. This illustrates the temporal reach of modern science. To detect, measure, and decode traces left by humans thousands of years ago in soil, water, air, and bodies. Archaeological evidence also reveals disparities in exposure across social strata. Workers directly involved in mining and metallurgy suffered the greatest impact, but elites consuming lead-containing cosmetics, foods, and utensils were not exempt. Lead levels in the bones and teeth of Roman nobility, medieval Europeans, and colonial elites indicate that lead infiltrated all layers of society, silently reducing health, intellect, and reproductive capacity. Lead stands as a testament to the stealthy spread of danger, it disregards status, age, or occupation, and functions as an underlying factor in the human historical narrative. These findings raise questions about environmental responsibility and management in past civilizations. Observing contamination in bones or ice cores from millennia ago shows that humans in ancient to early modern times faced invisible hazards from the materials they used, yet had limited capacity to mitigate or control them. This serves not only as a historical lesson but also as a modern warning: silent threats, from heavy metals to chemicals, can accumulate unnoticed and profoundly impact societies and health. Another remarkable aspect of modern archaeological evidence is its ability to link historical periods. Bones, teeth, ice cores, and lake sediments do not merely reflect lead accumulation in Roman, medieval, or colonial times, they show the continuity of this hazard across millennia. Lead wove its way through successive eras, from the Laurion and Rio Tinto mines to Potosi and Zacatecas. As a dark thread connecting past and present, reminding us that technological progress and resource extraction always carry long-term hazards. Ultimately, modern archaeological evidence does more than illuminate the history of lead, it offers lessons on responsibility, power, and human influence over environment and health. Lead demonstrates how a seemingly invisible and silent factor can profoundly shape societal operation, civilizational development, and generational health. Through bones, teeth, ice cores, and lake sediments, we witness the weighty story of this metal, simultaneously serving power and silently undermining health, subtle yet forceful, and consistently woven into the fabric of human history. Looking back, modern archaeological findings bridge past and present, ancient knowledge and modern science, progress and hazard. Lead, from Roma and mines, Athens, medieval Europe, to colonial America, emerges as a continuous agent, both a tool and a silent destroyer. Traces in bones, teeth, ice cores, and lake sediments do more than recount the history of pollution, they remind humanity of the vital importance of observation, record-keeping, and hazard recognition, teaching that all progress and power carry responsibility and a price that must be acknowledged. From the silent traces preserved in human bones, teeth, ice cores, and lake sediments, we begin to perceive a broader picture of lead's long-term impact, not merely as a toxic substance, but as a foundational factor shaping the fate of civilizations. Modern archaeological evidence, combined with isotope analysis and environmental data, reveals that lead not only spreads across space and time but also subtly affects health, labor productivity, and reproductive capacity in communities, thereby weakening social, economic, and military foundations. It is from this perspective that we enter the final chapter of the story, where lead emerges as a background agent in the decline of empires, permeating all aspects of human life while interacting with other factors such as war, epidemics, and economic crises to create a complex, yet highly compelling, historical narrative. Consider Rome, once a mighty empire. Many scholars have hypothesized that lead exposure contributed to its decline. While lead was not a direct cause, the accumulation of heavy metals in water, food, and everyday utensils diminished the health, intellect, and fertility of residents, particularly among the elite and officials who held critical political, military, and administrative roles. As the health of those in power declined, the complex systems of Roman governance became vulnerable to crises in war, disease, and economic instability. Lead, silent yet persistent, infiltrated daily life. From aqueducts to cooking implements, acting like a dark thread connecting prosperity with fragility, and strength with weakness. In this context, lead was not a direct killer but a softener of social foundations, quietly reducing the resilience and adaptability of communities. Data from bones, teeth, and ice cores show that lead exposure increased over time, particularly during peak periods of mining and urbanization. Despite their advanced knowledge and technology, the Romans were unable to recognize this accumulating threat. Lead undermined physical health, cognitive capacity, and reproductive ability, but its consequences unfolded slowly and quietly, creating an invisible yet profoundly significant risk layer in history. The interaction of lead with other stressors is also crucial. When the empire faced war, famine, or disease, the cumulative impact of lead made communities weaker, reduced resistance, influenced strategic decisions, and diminished administrative effectiveness. This is why many scholars describe lead as a background agent. It did not destroy an empire instantly but made societies more vulnerable, exacerbating crises and interacting with other factors to accelerate decline or collapse. Lead did not appear as a visible enemy. Rather, it infiltrated daily life steadily, exerting deep, difficult-to-measure effects that shaped the destiny of powerful empires. In medieval and colonial European contexts, lead continued to play a similar role. At silver lead mines, workers and indigenous laborers were exposed to toxic environments, while products containing heavy metals permeated daily European life. Multiple generations silently bore the health consequences. Paralysis, cognitive decline, reduced fertility, and even death. While wealth and power concentrated in the upper classes, the social foundation was eroded from within. Lead not only weakened individual health but also affected social structure, labor capacity, and resilience to crises. This serves as clear evidence that an ostensibly invisible element can become a decisive factor in history, quietly yet powerfully influencing all aspects of life and authority. Another critical aspect is lead's long-term accumulation and dissemination. Unlike direct threats such as war or epidemics, lead's impact unfolded gradually, accumulating in human bodies, the environment, and society. Modern archaeological evidence demonstrates that lead levels rose across generations, and its effects compounded with environmental, economic, and social stressors, reducing communities' adaptive and recovery capacity. Thus, lead became a silent but decisive background factor, influencing health, productivity, cognition, and reproduction, all foundational elements of an empire's strength and sustainability. The story of Rome, medieval Europe, and the colonial period underscores a profound principle: power and prosperity do not exist independently of public health and the environment. Lead vividly exemplifies this connection, serving both as a tool for economic and political development and as a quiet agent weakening societal foundations. Strategic decisions, from mining management to administrative organization and warfare, were indirectly influenced by the health consequences of lead, demonstrating the subtle yet profound impact of heavy metals in history. Lead also reflects the complexity of the relationship between humans, technology, and the environment. While mining and metallurgical techniques enabled empires to thrive, produce currency, weapons, and urban infrastructure, and generate immense wealth and power, they also caused heavy metal accumulation in the environment and human bodies. This is a classic example of the principle that every technological advance carries risk, and lead serves as a consistent testament, a silent background agent capable of determining the fate of entire civilizations. It is important to note that lead's role is not purely negative, it is both a tool and a hazard. Its use in water systems, utensils, alloys, and cosmetics contributed to economic, artistic, and technological advancement. Yet its slow infiltration and accumulation in the human body transformed short-term benefits into long-term hazards, affecting not only health but also the ability to maintain power, organize society, and exercise leadership. Lead acts as an intermediary, weaving through history, simultaneously constructing and undermining, serving and destroying. Ultimately, when viewed holistically, the story of lead and the decline of empires demonstrates that history is shaped not only by war, politics, or disease but also by silent, background factors that pervade life and the environment. Lead is one such factor. It does not kill instantly, but diminishes health, intellect, and fertility, interacting with other events to weaken civilizations. This exemplifies a universal truth: in every civilization, strength and prosperity come with silent hazards, and seemingly invisible factors like lead can shape history with quiet but undeniable power. Looking back, lead appears continuously throughout history. From prehistoric Galena mines, through Roman, medieval, and colonial periods, to modern archaeological evidence, as a dark thread running through the historical narrative, simultaneously a constructive and weakening agent. It reminds humanity that technological progress, resource extraction, and social power always carry risks and responsibilities. As a background agent, lead not only shaped human health and capability but also quietly influenced the fate of empires. A profound demonstration that every form of power has its price, and silent hazards persist across generations. As we close the journey through the history of lead, from the deep Galena mines to prehistoric societies, Rome, the Middle Ages, and the colonial era, an astonishing picture emerges. Lead, an element seemingly invisible, has quietly infiltrated human life, health, and power, subtly contributing to the weakening of mighty empires. This is not just a story about a heavy metal, but a vivid testament to how silent hazards can shape societies and civilizations. This video promises to offer you a completely new perspective on history, where every layer of dust, every smelted ore, every human tooth and bone tells a story of power, ambition, and the quiet yet profound consequences of human activity. You'll come to realize that seemingly invisible forces can shape entire histories, affecting health, intellect, and the survival capacity of communities. Imagine, every breath, every drop of water, every ingot of silver used in the past carries a story of strength and tragedy, and lead stands as the silent actor behind it all. Don't go anywhere, because there are still countless historical secrets you've never heard, waiting to be uncovered in upcoming videos. History has never been so silent and so powerful.